Hi, this is Mark from Top Local. We're here with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, Vancouver's best auto service experience, 18-time winners of best auto repair in Vancouver as voted by their customers. How are you doing, Bernie?
Doing very well this morning.
Great. So we're going to talk about a 2000 Ford F250, a transmission service on it. This is a pretty old vehicle. Why would we be talking about an F250?
Well, F250, of course, they still make them. It's a truck. It's popular. Now, speaking of old, cars do tend to last. Cars and trucks last a long time if you take care of them. And in this case, this is a work truck. It's got it's for a landscaping company, it has a lift box on the back. So it's kind of specialized. And the thing about, why are we talking about a 2000 truck? We actually work on a fair number of older vehicles like this because there's a lot of value in trucks, keeping them for a while. If you take care of them, you keep up the maintenance. It's worthwhile financially to do it, not just necessarily trade the truck in. There's a lot of work to switch the bed over to the other one. So if you take good care of it, it'll last a long time, and it's financially makes sense.
So what's involved with the transmission service on this vehicle?
So transmission service on the Ford is basically we remove the transmission pan, replace the filter, clean the inside of the pan, and then we have a machine and we flush the fluid. So while running the vehicle, we can actually replace pretty much all the fluid, which is the best way to do the service. There are cheaper, easier ways, like you can drop the pan, you can change the filter, put it back in, fill the fluid, but you're only changing about a third of the fluid, so you're leaving 2/3 of the old dirty fluid behind. So this is how we do the service at our shop. Definitely costs more money, but it's the right way to do it because you get 100% proper service.
So did you find anything interesting when you removed the pan?
Well, unfortunately, we did in this case. So let's just share a couple of photos of what we found, because this is a good part of doing a tranny service is you get to see what's inside the pan. Is there some wear going on? So let's have a look at a couple of things real quick. So this is the bottom of our transmission pan. If you look, it's very dirty. Now, the fluid was dirty, so this transmission probably had never had a service.
I'm not seeing the transmission pan, Bernie.
Sorry, you're not seeing the pan?
No.
What are you seeing?
Me.
You? Okay. So
as lovely as I am, I'm sure that's not what we want.
I'm sure. Okay, hang on for a second here. Let me try it a different way. Try this and try this. How's that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I was actually going to show a different photo first. So this is, you seen the pan now?
Yep.
Love the technology issues. Okay, so this is the inside of the transmission pan. Now, this is actually what we really don't want to see when we do a transmission service. There's a magnet at the bottom of the pan to catch any metal filings, and this magnet is loaded full of filings. You can also see some bit of metal debris here, and a couple of actual little pieces of metal here, like ring type pieces. So this is pretty serious. What I will say is that we road tested the vehicle thoroughly beforehand, and there was no concern with the transmission whatsoever. It shifted fine, and there was no leaks. The only reason we're doing a service is the fluid was old and dirty. So unfortunately, this transmission probably has a somewhat limited lifespan, but who knows? I mean, it's definitely wearing, but how much is how much longer? It's hard to say. Now here's a close up of the magnet. Again, you can see a lot of metal filings. So we clean all this out, and the fluid is new. Hopefully it'll, result in a much longer lifespan for the transmission, but it's really hard to say at this point how long it's going to go for.
So what would cause this sort of wear other than it's a 17-year-old vehicle?
I think just basically a 17-year-old vehicle. It's just age. And we do transmission services on vehicles that are 20 years old. We never find anything in them. And if you don't find anything, that still doesn't mean the transmission isn't going to pack it in next week. I mean, it's just finding metal filings is a bad sign, but it's it's not a guarantee that it's going to be dead next week, or not finding something doesn't necessarily mean anything either. But it's better to not find it because it's a surefire sign of wear. But I'd say it's just age. The vehicle actually doesn't have a lot of kilometers. It's under 150,000 kilometers, so it's not a lot. But nonetheless, that's what's there. And it is a work truck. I would imagine that some of its life it carries pretty heavy load, so that's harder on the transmission.
So do you recommend doing a transmission fluid service if you've got trouble shifting?
Not normally. I think, if there's any problem with the transmission, and sometimes we see it and the fluid's dirty and you go, okay, well, we could do a service. It's a few $100s to do it, and I think, you know, if the end result is going to be it's the same afterwards, well, you just wasted that money because you can put it towards actually repairing the transmission, which can often be extremely expensive. We have one client with a Volvo. They're really expensive transmissions to service, and he, you know, a couple of times we've done a service for him, and it's actually for about maybe 6 months to a year. It actually shifts fine, and then it needs it again. So for him, he kind of weighs it, going, do I spend $5,000 or $6,000 on the transmission, or do I spend $300 on the service, and he's done the service. So, but most of the time we don't recommend it.
So do you find this issue of severe wear very often when doing a transmission service?
Not really. You know, we do a lot of them, and pretty rare that we ever pull a pan apart, which, you know, when we do these hangouts, often look, oh, what's interesting, what's broken, what's more, and, you know, because these are the interesting things to show. And so, yeah, we don't see it all that often. Most of the time, it's just pretty straightforward. And I will say some vehicles don't have transmission pans. On the Ford, they do. I'd say it's about 70% of the vehicles that we service have the pan, but the number of them don't. Think vehicles like Volvo, Honda products, for what, those are a couple where they don't have a transmission pan. The filter's kind of built in, and the flush service is actually a lot easier in those vehicles and less costly.
So after the transmission service, was there any perceptible difference in how this vehicle ran?
Not really, not that we noticed. As I said, it worked fine beforehand. So sometimes when you do a service, you'll notice a difference, but most of the time it'll be the same. But having dirty fluid is never a good thing, especially this fluid was quite black and dark. Now you haven't asked the question, why does the fluid get like that? I mean, from age, a couple of things, why the fluid gets dirty. There's no combustion going on, so there's nothing to burn the fluid like motor oil, but but inside the transmission there are clutch discs. There's a lot of fibrous discs, and some of them, depending on how it's built, they'll, you know, a certain amount of material is always wearing, so it contaminates the fluid. Certain vehicles use discs that are kind of a blackish color, so the fluid goes black quite quickly. Also, I mean, there is heat and wear that way, so even some vehicles, you know, the fluid doesn't get that black, but over time it kind of tends to get a little brownish and burnt, and it loses some of its qualities.
And so how are these F250s for reliability overall?
It's a good truck. I mean, this thing is 17 years old. This is a gas truck, by the way. I know we often talk about diesels. This is a gas 5.4 liter. I know we've talked about issues that happen to these engines, but overall, it's a pretty good vehicle. Again, 17 years old. You know, it did need some work at this point in time beyond the transmission service, but nothing beyond the sort of general wear and tear you'd expect on a vehicle that age. So, pretty good truck.
So there you go. If you're looking for service for your F250 Ford, or you need transmission service in Vancouver, the guys to see are Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them at 604-327-7112. Book ahead, they're busy, or check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com, or our YouTube channel, Pawlik Automotive. Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks, Mark.